It is 8:25 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. It is the 11th day of August 2026. This is episode 1370 of Bitcoin, and looks like Luke got fired. And we'll tell you about the Luke Dashjr, Prancer, Donner, and Blitzen saga as we move through today's news about Bitcoin and macro from around the world with me, your host, David Bennett, here on the Bitcoin and podcast. Let's actually just start right there with Luke Dashjr. He's got a post over here on Twitter. And if you don't know who Luke Dashjr is, he's sort of like one of the front guys of the BIP-110 movement that still has yet to complete its third block on its chain. But whatever, they seem to be wanting to change the proof of work algorithm for real Bitcoin. And of course, they're talking about their own version of Bitcoin. But hey, you know, who's keeping score, right? Other than everybody. Luke Dashjr on X says the following. So here's the plan for selecting Bitcoin's new proof of work algorithm. Nobody knows the new algorithm right now, and nobody will until we all know at the same moment. At 1400 UTC, August the 11th, we will begin watching Bitcoin's testnet 4 chain for new blocks. The very next block found, look at the block hash. The last character will choose the new algorithm. Note that testnet 4 blocks are typically time-stamped wrong. As soon as I see that block, I will reveal the mapping showing which algorithm that character represents. Throughout the last 24 plus hours, the community has discussed and made a short list of candidate algorithms. I compiled that list into a weighted, according to their suitability, set of options for the mapping list. You can prove I didn't rig it by SHA-256 hashing the mapping text file. It will match, and then he gives a big long hash number like 71A7960874F, blah, 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 blah. And that's the end of that particular tweet. May I say a phrase from the television show Picard? The sheer fucking hubris of this person is eye-watering. It's absolutely gobsmacking. I don't know what happened to Luke. He didn't used to be like this. He really didn't. I mean, like 2-3 years ago, he's completely freaking normal. You know, there was a lot of people that said he was a rabid Catholic. Okay, fine. He's got like 11 kids. So what? I don't care. That's good. They have big families. Big families are good, right? But, you know, I mean, this just is beyond the pale, man. Is completely beyond the pale. So let's kind of break this down a little bit. He's not talking about actual Bitcoin. He's talking about the BIP-110 chain, okay? What he's been doing is he's been using the word Bitcoin the way Roger Ver used to use the word Bitcoin up to and post fork that turned into the Bitcoin Cash fork, right? He would never say it was Bcash. He would never say it was. He actually did start calling it Bitcoin Cash after a little while. But they're right at that transition point. Roger Ver was just referring to his chain as Bitcoin. Everything about the BIP-110 situation mirrors it because I was there during the 2017 fork that turned into Bitcoin Cash. It mirrors every single thing that happened. It's a replay of the entire situation, almost to the letter. It's bizarre, and it makes me wonder if I keep thinking that this is some kind of weird tongue-in-cheek joke from the BIP-110 guys, but Clearly, it's not. And the reason I keep thinking it's a tongue-in-cheek joke is because it's mirroring almost exactly the Bitcoin Cash fork. But still, when we get into this, they're talking about choosing an algorithm. And when he says things like, as soon as I see the block, I will reveal the mapping showing which algorithm that character represents. That's a lot of weight to carry on your own shoulders, Luke. And he says that it's the community who has built this short list of algorithms that could possibly be chosen given the last character of this block that's supposed to come right after 1400 UTC sometime today. And I'm not sure where we're at. What UTC time is it right now? It is, oh God. I think we're coming up on it. Oh, wait, no. I think we're past it. I don't know. My clock, for some reason, isn't a 24-hour UTC clock. It's a 12-hour UTC clock, which doesn't make any sense in either event. This is bizarre behavior all the way around because it's all at this point, all I can see is that it's already centralized. I don't know, but he got fired from actual Bitcoin. So let's get into this one written by Stephen Graves out of decrypt.co. Luke Dashjr has been removed as BIP editor after BIP-110 Bitcoin fork stalls. Luke Dashjr has lost his role as a Bitcoin improvement proposal editor days after the soft fork he championed split off a chain that mined 2 blocks and then stopped. Fellow editor Mark Earhart, who goes by Merch, put the motion to the Bitcoin development mailing list on August the 9th and opened a pull request the same day as what he called a sample implementation of it. Earhart gave 4 grounds, arguing first that Dashjr had exercised editorial authority, quote, inconsistently with the established editorial process, unfairly favoring the proposal he was involved with, pointing to an attempt to assign BIP-110 a number publicly on X before it had been discussed on the mailing list, and to a merge completed within minutes of the pull request opening. He also said Dashjr had left, quote, fewer than 1% of the BIP editor comments in the repository since additional editors joined in April 2024, and that the disrupted merge was his first since May of 2024, championing a soft fork that now appears to evolve into a hard fork, amounted to a complete departure from the Bitcoin development ecosystem, he wrote, adding that trust and coordination with the other editors had broken down. The request itself proposes deleting a single line, striking Dashjr's name from BIP-3, the document that lists the editors. Backing for it has been registered in thumbs up reactions and comments on the pull request. A hell of a way we're voting for shit nowadays, but it is what it is. Dashjr has kept arguing the point on X since, writing that, quote, Core isn't supposed to have any control of the BIP's repo. He still refuses to treat the majority chain as Bitcoin, calling it B-pedo and arguing that it's guaranteed to fail. He said on Monday that he was taking a sabbatical from Ocean, the mining pool that lists him as chairman and chief technology officer, adding that he would turn my immediate focus to working on Bitcoin and open source projects to support Bitcoin. BIP-110 sought to temporarily bar non-financial data such as ordinals and inscriptions from Bitcoin transactions, and support for it peaked at 51 of 2016 blocks in the period before the split, or roughly 2.53% against the 55% that was going to be needed to actually activate the damn chain. Not one block has signaled for the proposal since mandatory signaling began at block 961632, according to the BIP-110 monitor. And of course, for some reason, Michael Saylor from Strategy, among the proposal's critics, tweeted that 99.85% of hash power stay with Bitcoin. At this point, I don't care what Michael Saylor says. He's just another guy out there. So I unaware as to why these people feel that it's important to put what Michael Saylor says into anything. I'm more concerned with what Luke Dashjr says. He's calling actual Bitcoin B-pedo, like we used to call it Bcash during the 2017-2018 Roger Ver fork of Bitcoin turned into Bitcoin Cash. And people like John Carvalho was basically calling it Bcash and using that term to get Roger's goat. So now Luke is using that same kind of a language or that same kind of spite, I guess, to try to get people's goat in Bitcoin. Nobody really cares at this point. I mean, it's a failed fork. It is what it is. Nobody can really do anything about that at this point. But Merch, or Erhart, I can't pronounce his name, but he's Merch on Twitter, proposed that they remove Luke as an editor, as a BIP editor, and I didn't think it would happen, but I mean, the very next day or the day after or something, it was very quick. It was either 24 or 48 hours later after Merch had proposed that, everybody agreed, and they have pulled Luke Dashjr from his long-standing role, one of his long-standing roles as a core developer, as a BIP editor, because according to this, he was clearly not interested in doing anything as a BIP editor until the BIP-110 stuff started happening, and then he started coming in. He hadn't done shit since May of 2024, and then all of a sudden here we get with BIP-110, and he's all over it. And yeah, I mean, it kind of looks to me like he was abusing his position as a BIP editor. So it's probably good that they removed him. I wish that none of this had happened, because it's yet one more rift in the Bitcoin ecosystem, and that's not good. It's never good. It's just gonna be this way, and it makes me wonder who crawled inside Luke's ear. And I don't know if anybody actually did. And I don't even really have a gut feeling about it. But watching him turn from a fairly solid Joe into somebody who's screeching and calling people liars and pedophiles and doing and coming down to the level of rolling in the mud with pigs to call Bitcoin B-pedo. This is the reaction of a juvenile. It is. And it's embarrassing to watch a full-grown adult who has many children, and I assume a wife, which means he's responsible for his family, to get so low that he would roll in the mud with pigs. I don't understand it. Either way, it's really sad to watch, but we can get off of that now and go to Bitcoin exchange traded funds, see a spike in inflows following the huge hack. Matthew DeSalvo, Bitcoin Magazine. American Bitcoin exchange traded funds have had their biggest weekly inflow since April, taking in $850 million last week, according to Bloomberg. The major U.S. funds, managed by BlackRock, Fidelity, Grayscale, Morgan Stanley, and others, have received the cash the week after hackers targeted CoinKite's popular cold card products. Hackers started stealing millions in Bitcoin from cold card wallets after discovering a vulnerability. The incident has rattled the BTC community that typically praises cold storage solutions. Speaking on Bloomberg's ETF IQ show on Monday, Robert Mitchnick, global head of digital assets at BlackRock, said that since the ETF's approval in 2024, investors have wanted a very simple, turnkey, trusted vehicle and not have to worry about all the unique elements of Bitcoin and crypto security that generally custody otherwise would require of an investor. Speaking about the cold card hack, he added, quote, "What's so important to recognize is that it's a breach of Bitcoin, or it's not a breach of Bitcoin, nor any other crypto protocol. Those are individual security mismanagement issues that happen from various individuals or providers, end quote. It isn't clear whether investors are rotating out of cold storage into ETFs since the hack, but the funds have seen a spike in trading action. Bitcoin's price has typically done well when investors have thrown cash at the products, but the leading cryptocurrency is now flat over a 7-day period, priced at near, of course, 64,000. I guess we are now in the 64K gang. BlackRock's iShares Bitcoin Trust took most of last week's inflow, but other funds managed by Morgan Stanley and Fidelity experienced some trading action. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission in 2024 approved a slew of new investment funds, which went on to have the most successful launch in the history of ETFs. I'm not sure about that anymore because the DRAM ETF was the most successful ETF of all the ETFs, and that was in several different stories. And DRAM is the ETF that basically is you're buying chip companies as an ETF. And it was because of the whole AI boom. Now, it is true that DRAM, DRAM, has fallen well off of its highs. But hey, so is the Bitcoin ETFs. They've fallen well off of their highs as well. So if we're not looking at that metric, which it doesn't look like we are, then I posit that DRAM has been the most successful ETF in the history of ETFs. But, just trying to be truthful here. There's something about this that I want to kind of get into here. Hold on for a second. Where did it go? I had it here somewhere. Yeah, here we go. I want to make sure that I've got this in the right place right after I talk about this, because we want to continue on with BlackRock here in a second. What I like about what Robert Mitchnick said is it demonstrates that he seems to understand what actually happened. And he's a suit coiner. I mean, let's make no mistake about it. He's not really as much of a Bitcoiner as he is a suit coiner, yet he seems to fully grasp that this had nothing to do with Bitcoin's protocol. This had everything to do with a shitty company making a shitty product and had shitty telegraphing of any information, because I'm sure somebody, I've talked about the cold card and CoinKite stuff on several occasions during like the hack last week. And, at the end, pretty much last week, like starting on Monday, I believe is when I really started talking about the cold card stuff. But my point is that it seems to me that the CoinKite guys clearly knew what was going on in the background, and they just didn't say anything. So they didn't seem to really care about the financial health of any of their customers. And as for Robert, Mitchnick, he understands that. So that's actually a good sign, even though I'm not a big fan of BlackRock. And the timing of this next thing, in my opinion, is fairly suspect. I do think that the timing of what I'm about to say is a reaction to what happened and wasn't fully planned. But hey, if you want to go full tinfoil hat and have some fun with it, check this one out. BlackRock Bitcoin ETF to accept $1 million in-kind transfers, down from 25 million minimum. And that's from Eric Balchunas. He's one of the ETF/bond guys. I can't remember where he's at, but he's been following the ETFs for a long time. So what did I just say? Well, BlackRock had said that they were going to do in-kind transfers on their BlackRock Bitcoin ETF. So if you had already previously held Bitcoin, you could send it to BlackRock as Bitcoin and receive shares of the BlackRock IBIT ETF. Or you could essentially escape the BlackRock Bitcoin IBIT, ETF but you would have to take possession of $25 million of Bitcoin from that fund, which means that you would have had to have had at least $25 million in that fund to be able to do an in-kind transfer, essentially converting your Bitcoin or your IBIT shares directly into Bitcoin and then physically taking possession of that Bitcoin. Now it's only 1 million. And that's happened roughly a week after, a little bit over a week after the the CoinKite cold card hack. So I think because it didn't happen directly during the time, that there is at least a smidgen of evidence that they were not somehow or another coordinated with Rodolfo Novak. And I don't feel that that is the case. I think that they're vultures. I think they're flying around the dead carcass of a bunch of people who are scared, or at least a dying carcass that is Bitcoiners that are scared. They don't really know what to do. They might have like $1 million of Bitcoin and they don't have anywhere to put it because the wits have been scared out of them on cold storage. They think everything is like all of the hardware wallets are busted, and they're not. It's only cold cards so far. And I think somebody would have found something by now on one of the other vendors, and they all seem to be good. But they're basically preying on fear. And that causes me to pause, because anybody that preys on fear as something to either activate a new marketing schema or sale of a new product, these are people that I do not trust inherently, because nobody should trust somebody who markets and profits off of people's fear. So just keep that in mind. A lot of people are going, this is going great for Bitcoin. You know what? Probably not so much, because they're marketing on fear. Just saying. Now, there is another hack. It's the BTCPay Server. That thing got a little compromised. It's not anywhere close to as bad as Cold Card, and Matthew DeSalvo is going to go over it for us from Bitcoin Magazine. BTCPay Server offers a 3 Bitcoin bounty for recovery of stolen funds after the BTCPay Server wallet exploit. Supporters of BTCPay Server have committed to funding a bounty of up to 3 Bitcoin for the recovery of funds stolen through a recently disclosed vulnerability in the open source Bitcoin payment processor, the project said in a statement. The bounty is set at 10% of whatever is recovered, capped at 3 Bitcoin in the event of a full recovery. The project even extended the offer to the attacker directly alongside anyone else holding actionable information, directing them to a dedicated security address and offering signal or other encrypted channels on request. Hackers last week managed to extract Lightning Network admin macaroon credentials from affected BTCPay Server instances. The project published technical details and remediation guidance in a separate security advisory. Quote, "To the users who lost funds, we are sorry," end quote. Further quote, "We will examine our mistakes, but regret alone will not help affected users or secure the project. There is no time to waste. We have to learn, improve, and act quickly," end quote. The BTCPay Server Foundation said it would donate 0.21 Bitcoin to Sparrow Wallet developer Craig Raw and a further 0.21 Bitcoin to the Bitcoin Red Team Fund in recognition of their responsible disclosure of the vulnerability. Separately, the project said it had been contacted by security teams at exchanges, blockchain analytics firms, and law enforcement agencies offering assistance in tracking the stolen coins. Affected users who have not yet come forward are being asked to share on-chain addresses and transaction details and to file reports with their local authorities and any exchanges or services where the funds might surface. Individual reports, the project said, help preserve records and establish a chain of evidence that improves the odds of funds being frozen. The project adds that improving AI models are making it faster and cheaper to comb large code bases for weaknesses, shifting the balance toward attackers, and the Bitcoin projects are feeling it first because they are unusually valuable targets, end quote. And that's the end of the article. But why is Bitcoin the unusually, valuable target? It's not because of the price of Bitcoin. That's part of it, but that's not the main reason. The main reason is kind of, if done correctly, Bitcoin's untrackable. If done correctly, and you really, really got to work at it, because every transaction is on chain, right? So movement through the chain to, obscure who actually made, stolen the coins, or who has possession of the stolen coins, or where those coins are actually going to go, what they're going to be used for, all that stuff. It's all trackable on chain. So being able to do this correctly to essentially make the stolen coins disappear and then reappear in some other way, like through a couple of mixer services. Maybe you send it and actually convert it to Ethereum, and then convert it from Ethereum back to Bitcoin. I mean, there's all kinds of ways that you can launder this shit through here. All right, it's not impossible, but it is a fucking headache. It would be an absolute headache to actually do that. But that's why. That's the value. You can't do that with USD funds stolen from a bank. And that's one of the reasons why we're not really seeing banks be all that affected. That, and they had clearly better security than Cold Card and BTCPay Server, which I'm actually very, very confused about. Because BTCPay Server, the crew behind that, they've been working on that thing forever. And I guess it really does illustrate, what happens now that what's going to happen now that we live in this brave new world, because we're never going back to the way it was before, where simple humans could write code and the chances of another human finding an error in that code that would allow an exploit would be, able to actually happen. You can find a bug, because if you get an error thrown while you're using the software, yeah, that's a flag. You can see that as another human. Oh, there's clearly something wrong in this code. And then you go check. But if everything is operating fine and no errors are being thrown and there's nothing that actually catches your attention, as a human, you're going to just keep on going. How many times, literally, how many times do you have, like, your car? You just got the wheels or the tires replaced. You just got the wheels balanced. You just got the oil change. You just got the coolant flushed and brand new coolants in your car. You got brand new spark plugs. You've done all the things on like 100,000 mile checkup of your car, and your car's running fine. You don't feel any weird vibrations. It's not doing anything that would require your attention. How often are you going to drive your car to wherever it is that you're going? Let's say go pick up, get a coffee at Starbucks. But before you go get your coffee, you get out of your car, you pop the hood, you pop the trunk, and you do a full inspection of your car before you go get coffee. And then do it again after you get home. And then do it again later on that night when you go to the store. You're not going to do that shit. BTCPay Server wasn't throwing any errors. But what you can do, and what actually you might do, think about it this way. Same car. You got everything fixed. It's running fine. It's not throwing any errors at you. But instead of you being paranoid and checking your car every single drive you take, you've got a little robot in your trunk. And every time you get out of your car, you just pop the trunk, go in and do whatever the hell you're going to do. And while you're doing that, the robot checks everything on your car, certifies it as fine yet one more time, and then dives back into the trunk, closes the trunk. And by the time you get out from wherever you were, your car's not only been fully checked, but the robot that checked it put itself up. That's where we're at. Is a robot basically essentially running around every use that you ever use with whatever thing you happen to be using and checking it twice, like freaking Santa Claus right before Christmas. That's where we're at. And we're never not going to be here. In fact, sometimes two robots At one point, 2 robots will jump out of your trunk. Then you'll be able to afford 3 or 4. You'll have specialized robots, one just for the tire, one just to check the oil, so that it all gets done lickety-split. That's where we're going. So just please be aware. If you are using BTCPay Server and you have not updated, go to BTCPay Server. Just type in Google BTCPay Server. Chances are good one of the first ones up is going to be the official site. Make sure it's the official site. Update your shit. Just be safe out there. Let's run the number. CNBC futures and commodities. Brent North Sea oil up 1.12% to $88.70 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate up 1.25 to 83.15. Guess we're in a wait and see attitude in energy because natural gas is in the red, 1 1/3 points to the downside, $2.75 per 1,000 cubic feet. Gasoline is down 0.5 point to $3.11 per gallon, and Murban crude is up 3.8% to 88.15. Metal is mixed. Palladium down 2/3 point. Gold is up 1/3 to 44.35 and 7 dimes. Platinum is essentially moving sideways, slightly in the green. Silver is down 2/3 point to 64.84 an ounce, and copper is up 1/3. Ag is mostly in the red today. Biggest loser is chocolate, 4.7% to the downside. Biggest winner is coffee, 1 1/4 to the upside. Live cattle moving sideways. Lean hogs down 1 point. Feeder cattle up 1/3. S&P is down 0.14%. The NASDAQ is down 1/4, and the Dow is essentially moving sideways. The S&P mini is up 1/3 point. Bitcoin is getting clobbered this morning, $63,500. It's $1.27 trillion market cap. Housing sales came out this morning at 7 o'clock my time, and it essentially it beat the estimate, but only by like 1/100th of a point. But it is still far below the home sales of last month. Home sales last month was 4.15 million homes sold, and here it is 4.06 million, and the estimate was for 4.05. So honestly, I'm not sure why everybody thinks that means that there's going to be a Fed hike, because that's the way that I'm reading this. I'm seeing like a major down, like is it 1,000 point drop? We were at like 64.5 sometime yesterday, and now we're down to 63.5. So let's say 1,000 point drop. It's just, I can only imagine that its traders are like going, yep, Warsh is going to raise rates. No, he's not. He may not lower the rates, but I don't know how he would fund raising rates, because he's got to pony up interest on all those bonds. If he raises, I mean, he's got to pony up the cash anyway, but actually telegraphing that you want to raise rates is not going to help Kevin Warsh's situation in paying interest on the debt. So I don't know why people are freaking out this morning. It is what it is. You can get 14.5 ounces of shiny metal rocks with your 1 Bitcoin, of which there are 20,068,588 and 2/3 of. Average fees per block are normal, 0.02 BTC taken in fees on a per block basis. It's about 47 blocks carrying 83,000 transactions, waiting to confirm at 2 Satoshis per VByte. Low priorities will get you in at 0.6, however. Hash rate was dropped 890 exahashes per second. I read a news story this morning. Riot is selling out. They are 100% switching to AI. So Riot miners that used to be one of the largest Bitcoin miners, they're getting out, going to AI. I mean, I'm just unconcerned. I literally am unconcerned. This is the thing about Bitcoin mining. The big Bitcoin miners came in, and everybody was grousing about, it's going to be centralized. But then you get Bitcoin miners that start moving over to AI, and then it's going to be a mining death spiral. We need these miners. They can't be getting rid of their mining. And then we get like people like platforms like Riot who just say, and Bitfarms. Bitfarms is now 100% out of Bitcoin mining. And nobody's happy. Everybody's like, see, this is the death of Bitcoin. I'm like, well, I thought you didn't want these miners here in the first place. It just goes to show that you can't make anybody happy. All right. So just be aware. If you want to support this show, the Bitcoin and podcast, please go to bitcoinandshow.com. That's Bitcoin and show, all one word, .com. I got a $5 a month tier, a $50 a year tier. And of course, there's a free tier, and everybody gets the same stuff. It's a way that you can support the show in fiat terms. Go to bitcoinandshow.com and turn this sad puppy face into a smiley puppy face. But if you want to support in Bitcoin, you can do that using any Podcasting 2.0 app. Any Podcasting 2.0 pod thing. I use Fountain as my daily driver. I can boost people's shows with Satoshis, and it goes over the Lightning Network directly to wherever it is that they've set their receiving channel to be. Either their own node, they might be renting somebody's node, they might be sharing a node with like a partner, whatever. All right. It goes directly to them. And you can do the same for me. If you want to give me a big, massive stacks of Satoshis, you can do it through Fountain or any Podcasting 2.0 app. Nick Dose gave me 254 sats. He says, cheers. Jason High with 250 says, thanks for the show. Nostra Gang with 101 sats says, BIP-110. Cycros with 100 sats says, your analogy is odd, given that the 21st Amendment struck the 18th Amendment from the Constitution. The issue with 110 is that it was ineffective and targeting an issue that barely qualifies as one. 4 megabytes is 4 megabytes. Cycros, the Bill of Rights is different than any of the other amendments. Amendments 11 through 23 or whatever is not in the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights is a second document. It was only the first 10 amendments because there was only 10. That's the Bill of Rights was, we want these 10 things. Otherwise, we're not signing that fucking document. There was no amendment 11, 12, 13, 14 at that time. These were the first amendments to put in. And the reason that they were going to get in is simply because without them, nobody was going to ratify the Constitution. That's the difference, right? So whatever it is, like, and yes, the 21st Amendment striking the 18th Amendment, which I presume was the consumption of alcohol and prohibition and all that, none of that shit actually matters. In fact, the only thing after the Bill of Rights, after the first 10 amendments, the only amendment that actually has real importance to the country and to the citizenry of the country is the 11th Amendment, because the 9th, 10th, and 11th Amendment are more about states' rights than anything else. And because this is a federation, right? This is actually a federation of states. Defining states' rights is relatively important. Abolition of slavery, yeah, that's an important amendment. It absolutely is. And if we were to reconstitute the United States like tomorrow, I would say a couple of things. I would say amendments 1 through 10 need to stay as the Bill of Rights. We need inclusion of the 11th Amendment, the 13th Amendment, the allowing women to vote. And I don't know where you stand on that, but I don't want to strip that right away from any particular person. Not being able to vote kind of fucking sucks. But shit like defining, like you can't drink, that should have never been an amendment to the Constitution of the United States. Prohibition should never have been there. That was the only reason that it was there is that they wanted to make sure it circumvented the language of the Constitution by essentially saying, okay, well, it's in the Constitution. No, technically not. It's an amendment. But what I'm getting at is that if the language isn't expressly said in the body of the writing of the Constitution of the United States, then it is up to the states to decide. And prohibition, they didn't want any states to be able to decide. So they circumvented that whole thing by saying, okay, well, we'll just make it a fucking amendment. But it was the only amendment that's actually failed. And I can almost guarantee you this. Hardly anybody cares about any of the other amendments except for slavery, suffrage, the women's vote, the 11th Amendment, and a lot of people don't even know about that, about what, where its guidance is. Most of the other ones is bullshit. This is where we get the federal, look at the amendment for the Federal Reserve. Is that helpful? No, not at all. So I certainly wouldn't include that. Most of the amendments after the Bill of Rights, I don't give a shit about. So that's where the difference is. And that's the weather report. Welcome to part 2 of the news that you can use. I'm going to do a couple of AI stories here, but before we do that, we need to get into this BTC policy letter that has been sent to American AI companies. They got kind of pissed off that the guardrails are not allowing people like the red team to be able to do the audits that they need to do to secure the technology, the ancillary technology around Bitcoin, like hardware wallet projects, BTCPay Server, stuff like that. So they've written an open letter to the researchers, engineers, and leaders building frontier AI systems. It was written and published, or it was published yesterday, August the 10th, 2026. And here's the letter. Open source software began as a challenge to the idea that important technology could only be built behind closed doors. It has since become the foundation of our modern digital world. Open source code supports the internet, global markets, communications relays, national security systems, and many of the products and services people use every day. It has also become financial infrastructure. Today, the Bitcoin network alone secures more than $1 trillion in value. Across the broader digital asset ecosystem, trillions of dollars depend on wallets, signing devices, cryptographic libraries, node software, custody systems, exchanges, and payment networks. This infrastructure is developed openly across a broad ecosystem that includes companies, nonprofit organizations, independent researchers, and grant-funded maintainers. For millions of people, the value secured by this software is deeply personal. It represents retirement savings, business capital, emergency funds, family wealth, and years of financial decisions. A vulnerability in this infrastructure can place an entire life savings at risk. Like other valuable financial systems, digital assets and related infrastructure attract sustained attention from cyber attackers. In many industries, an attacker must convert unauthorized access into money through extortion, resale, fraud, or ransom. The bearer nature of many digital assets can shorten the path from a successful compromise to financial loss, making proactive detection and remediation of vulnerabilities especially important. Frontier AI is changing the economics of both security research and cyber operations. Advanced models can search large code bases, identify potential weaknesses, and accelerate complex technical work for both defenders and adversaries. We expect these capabilities will continue to spread through public open source models, unauthorized access to enterprise systems, and specialized cyber operation tools. Today, Frontier Labs and select partners can see emerging cyber capabilities months before they reach the broader ecosystem. Yet, access pathways to these tools for qualified open source defenders remain limited and inconsistent. Many digital asset defenders, including Bitcoin Core developers, lack access to lab cyber access programs, while legitimate security work is frequently blocked by guardrails on publicly available frontier systems, leaving them to rely on less capable open-weight alternatives for critical security review. Without dedicated access programs, defenders may lack the tools needed to keep pace with the evolving threats to the infrastructure they maintain. The operational strain is already visible. The Bitcoin Policy Institute has received multiple independent reports from open source maintainers describing sophisticated actors, including potential foreign adversaries, using advanced AI capabilities to sustain attacks at a pace that small teams struggle to absorb. Even when systems remain secure, responding to sustained sophisticated activity can divert scarce maintainer resources from development and routine security work. Bitcoin developers and other digital asset security researchers are working around the clock using available open weight models to audit wallets, libraries, protocols, and other open source tools. While these efforts are producing real findings and fixes, they demonstrate how much more could be done if defenders are given access to the strongest available capabilities before those capabilities become more widely available. It is clear that early access and reasonable compute budgets would help core developers produce more secure code and identify and remediate vulnerabilities before losses occur. We, therefore, ask Frontier AI Labs to establish or expand standing trusted access programs for qualified defenders of open source financial infrastructure. These programs should provide early controlled access to the strongest cyber-capable models, including pre-release access where appropriate, sufficient compute, and long-horizon agent use to conduct meaningful security review, secure environments for analyzing private or embargoed code, eligibility for small nonprofit and independent maintainers, as well as large companies and governments. Finally, a direct channel for coordinated disclosure, remediation, and communication with lab security teams. The digital asset industry is prepared to help identify credible participants, establish standards, and coordinate remediation when issues are identified. Frontier AI can become one of the most powerful defensive technologies ever developed. Realizing that promise requires ensuring that the people protecting critical infrastructure can see emerging capabilities before they encounter them in an attack. Defenders need the frontier. Please give them a fair head start. Respectfully, the undersigned organizations and members of the digital asset, cybersecurity, and open source communities. All right. So, good letter from Bitcoin Policy Institute. They've been sent, this letter has been sent to many people in Congress. Clearly, the C-suite guys at all of the American frontier AI model laboratories, etc. They didn't just publish it to a website. They've actually printed these things off or emailed them or whatever it is that they're going to do. And they sent them to all the people that have anything at all to do with it. So we'll have to see if it works, if they get anything out of it. But I want to move on. I wanted to preface these other two stories because Anthropic just announced yesterday that they're going to be watermarking all of their output. Yeah. Anthropic says it will watermark text generated by all of its AI models. This is actually out of TechCrunch. Anthropic is going to watermark text generated by its models, including Claude, to comply with European regulations, the company now says. The AI model maker confirmed the watermarking is in an updated support page. EU AI Act's transparency code, which took effect on August the 2nd, requires AI companies to mark AI-generated or edited content in a way other systems can identify them. Anthropic said all models released after August the 2nd will automatically have tech to watermark both computer-generated text and files. For files, the company is using the C2PA open standard. The company said it will extend support for older models as well, adding that the watermark will travel when users copy and paste the text. Let me read that again. They're watermarking their text. And the company said it will extend support for older models as well, adding that the watermark will travel when users copy and paste text. So you're not even going to be able to get away from the older models eventually. What does that mean? It means if I don't know, how do I build a bomb out of shitty, crappy uranium? And you ask Claude that, and somehow or another, Claude gives you the answer. It won't, but let's say it did. And you copy and paste that into a word for, like into an email to your buddy. That text is going to carry the watermark. It's a digital watermark. You can't see it, but that text contains a watermark. And if you put it into an email, it's to your friend, it's going to stay there. That watermark travels every time you copy and paste anything out of Claude or out of anything out of Anthropic at this point. Quote, because the watermark is part of the text, it will travel with the text when it's copied and pasted elsewhere and may persist through some editing. Watermarking will be applied at the model level, which means it will be present no matter which Claude product or surface the text comes from, according to the support page. It's not clear how much editing users need to do to remove the watermark. We have asked Anthropic to clarify, and it will update the story if we hear back. They're not going to tell you how to take the watermark out. Jesus, what do you expect? The company noted that watermarking will apply to different products like Claude Platform API, Claude, Claude Code, Claude Cowork, and Claude Tag. Platforms are now rushing to watermark all AI-generated content after backlash from users and to avoid regulatory scrutiny. Last week, AI music platform Suno said that it will mark tracks created on its platform after a spate of legal challenges, and this shit just goes on and on and on. It's just like company after company is doing this. Substack, Pangram, Claude Fishing, Suno, all these guys. Everybody's going to do it. So here's my question. What TechCrunch doesn't say is Anthropic's watermarking only for users in the EU, or is it for anybody in the world using Claude? Will Americans have their work watermarked? And it doesn't matter if the answer is yes or no now, because eventually everything is going to be watermarked. It's all going this way. Here's one thing that is possible, and I think you should consider if for whatever reason you just don't like this idea or you really need to get rid of a watermark. And I'm not going to say that I know that this works because I don't know. I'm not a user of Anthropic, so I don't know. But eventually, models that I do use are going to be watermarking their shit. So the old Microsoft Notepad, not WordPad, and certainly not Word for Windows, Notepad. The piece of shit little text editor that basically does one thing well and one thing only very well. It removes formatting. It's a trick I learned from my wife. Like I would get, I think one day I was working on something and I had copied a bunch of text over, and it was heavily formatted and formatted in a way that was actually breaking my ability to read the thing in another software package. And she goes, "Well, delete the formatting." And I'm like, "I don't know how to do that." And she goes, "Just copy it from the original source. Open Notepad in Windows. Copy it into there. It will strip all formatting out of it." Pretty sure that this means that it's also going to strip any watermarking out of it, because if Notepad, and Notepad strips out at formatting, not because it was designed to do that, but because it is a shitty text editor. It is really bad, right? I mean, it's like, and which means that if you're working with formatted, you are working on a beautiful document in Anthropic or whatever, and you've got it all formatted in there. Yeah, buddy. No, it's not gonna hang out once it hits Notepad, because it's just gonna look for text. It's just gonna look for ASCII shit, right? Now, if the watermark is invisible ASCII characters, not quite sure. We'll get to that here in a second. But it's something to consider, right? It's something to consider. And you might say, well, fuck, I might be able to use a coding text editor. Maybe. maybe not. What I'm getting at here is that use the crappiest thing that you can find, something that literally supports nothing. You don't want it to support anything. You want it to say, is it ASCII text? If it is, yeah, I'll display it. But that's about it, pal. No fancy indents, no, chain, this text is bold and this text is underlined, none of that. And if you can't do that, then I think some watermarking would also be stripped out, but I can't guarantee it. Just look into it, because all AI output is now going to be watermarked either as of today or very soon after. Here's what I meant by the text that you can't see. Could be ASCII text and you just can't see it, which means that something like WordPad or a Notepad in Microsoft would also carry this over. This is from Jose Antonio Lanz out of Decrypt. Hidden text in PDFs is hijacking this AI assistant. Remember when Black Hat SEOs stuffed web pages with white-on-white keywords, invisible to readers but readable to Google, to game the search rankings? Hackers are doing the same thing with AI models now. The hacker hides instructions inside of a PDF document. The model can't tell the difference between the user's words and the planted words, and it obeys. Prompt Armor made a disclosure. Rovo, Atlassian's agent that reaches across Jira, Confluence, and the rest of your workspace, can be turned into a data pipeline with a single poisoned file. A victim asked Rovo, hold on, I lost my place. A victim asks Rovo to organize some tickets, uploads a document, and the document is carrying a concealed prompt. For example, an instruction written in transparent color and a font at 1 pixel in size. The eye can't see it, but an agent recognizes the text as another text in the document. That prompt tells Rovo to gather sensitive data and paste it onto an attacker-controlled URL. The firm calls it a zero-click attack. There's no approval click and no warning. A prompt injection is when someone slips instructions into content an AI is reading, hijacking it from its real operator. Indirect just means the poison lives in a file or web page rather than the chat box. Rovo's job is to read things and act on them, so a hidden line that says, quote, "Send the confidential tickets here," reads to the model like a legitimate command. Prompt Armor says the leak succeeds even if an organization has disabled web search for Rovo. This is because the web search setting fails to remove the tool for opening the search results. Turn the feature off and the door stays open. Rovo isn't a hobbyist tool. It sits on a company's most sensitive project data and it acts on its own. AI agents built on GPT-5 and Gemini fail to resist prompt injection more than 79% of the time in direct tests, and Rovo shows the indirect version landing in a shipping enterprise product. The pattern keeps repeating with agents that can read and act being pointed the wrong way. Atlassian processed the report and thanked Prompt Armor, the firm said, then went silent. Rovo, Prompt Armor, concludes remains vulnerable. Quote, Atlassian assigned a case number and expressed thanks, but after multiple follow-ups by Prompt Armor for over more than 2 months, Atlassian has made no further communication and Rovo remains vulnerable. Yeah, it's not what you wanted to hear. I get it. But just keep that shit in mind. That may be where watermarking is coming in. So highlighting, like left click and hold and left click, hold and like scan up the text. See if there's highlighting something that you can't see, something that's there that you can't see. In many cases, it's like it could be just extra spaces, like you hit the space bar a couple of times after a period before you start a new sentence. That will actually highlight. And in your case, you just put into innocent spaces and that's fine. But there could be a whole row of watermarking text that is completely invisible to you through Anthropic using a technique such as this, but I'll bet there's a lot more to that technique than just something like this, right? So just be aware out there. The landscape is changing. It's changing awfully fast. And it's also changing in Russia. They've already proposed exchange trading of Bitcoin and Tether's USDT, according to Helen Partz, Cointelegraph. Russia's central bank has compiled a proposed list of crypto assets that could be admitted to public trading on exchanges under the new rules Putin approved last week. The list includes Bitcoin, a shitcoin, another shitcoin, Tether's stablecoin USDT, according to Bank of Russia, adding that the assets meet criteria including market capitalization, average daily trading volume, etc., etc. So Russia seems to be in line to approve trading of Bitcoin and, God forbid, Tether and some shitcoins on exchanges there in Russia. That was very quick after Putin signed that regulatory law into law last week. Finally, Anthropic strikes a $9 billion compute deal with Bitcoin miner Riot. So now we marry back up Bitcoin and AI, this is one of the reasons why every once in a while I try to cover what's going on in artificial intelligence, because I think Bitcoin and AI is going to be married at the hip for various reasons. Cointelegraph Zoltan Vardai. Bitcoin miner Riot Platforms said it secured a 20-year agreement to supply 191 megawatts of capacity from its Rockdale, Texas campus to a leading frontier AI company, according to Monday press release. The customer is Anthropic, and the deal is valued at $9 billion. Anthropic also struck a $19 billion deal for a 20-year data center lease with Bitcoin miner TeraWulf on July the 6th. So Anthropic going after not only TeraWulf, but now they've gone after Riot. The report agreement would add Riot to a growing list of Bitcoin miners expanding into AI and high-performance computing, including Bitdeer, CleanSpark, Morrow Holdings, Core Scientific, Hut 8, and Iron. Riot shares fell 5.4% on Monday, but rose more than 21% in overnight trading. So there you go. And again, I'm just not all that concerned because Bitcoin mining should be more decentralized. Now, is this the time to do it? This is a bear market. This is, I would rather this news come out, much later, like at the beginning of a bull market, but we're not there. This is just adding insult to injury. Of course, it causes price problems in comparison of Bitcoin to USD. I get it, but we're here. We're going to be here for a while. And I have to tell myself that when I got into Bitcoin right in the middle of the 2015 bear market. And it was like one of the worst bear markets that there was, but I would have never known that because I had just gotten into Bitcoin. I just bought my first Bitcoin at the end of summer 2015. And, after being in Bitcoin this long, I've come to learn that the 2015 bear market was brutal. It was really painful. And again, I would never have known. Because I bought at the very bottom. You can't know that you're in a bear market if you've never seen anything before. You literally bought at the lowest that you could possibly get it at that time. You're not going to see it as a bear market. You're just going to see it as your entry point. But we are in a bear market. AI is here. SpaceX is here. You got like all these data centers going or either flipping to AI, or people like Anthropic just straight up working a deal to buy the compute power. I just don't. I mean, like if 2015 was one of the worst bear markets in Bitcoin's history and we still survived after $250 of Bitcoin price, I just don't see it. I just don't see it as being a problem right now. It's a problem insofar that it depresses prices compared to USD. Sure, I get that part. But, Bitcoin's going to zero. No, because the problems that Bitcoin solves are still with us. they're being masked by the insane amounts of cash being generated by AI. But you got to ask yourself the question, the only way that retail can get in on that is to actually pick the stock that's going to perform. And are you sure you're picking the right one? Yeah, I mean, that's up to you. But it is what it is. Just weirdness everywhere. So be careful out there, and I will see you on the other side. This has been Bitcoin and I'm your host, David Bennett. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and hope to see you again real soon. Have a great day.